My name is Dr. Sarah Labovitz, and I'm a band director and music education teacher at Arkansas State University. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, none of us were able to finish out the school year with our band classes in person. Hopefully, you still have had a fun time playing your clarinet at home. When you're at school, if something sounds funny or you have a question, you can just ask your band director. Because you may not be able to do that right now, I'm making this video to help you out. Today, we will be reviewing the following clarinet things. We are going to talk about how to assemble your clarinet, how to make a clarinet embouchure, or what you're doing with your mouth, how to produce a characteristic clarinet sound so you sound better than Squidward, although let's be honest, you probably already sound way better than Squidward, how to disassemble your clarinet, and how to find more music to play just in case you've played through everything that's in your band folder. All right, it's time to get started. At this time, you will need your clarinet in its case, a working reed, and a chair to sit in. You will not need any music or a music stand. Feel free to pause the video to get those items. I'll be here when you get back. Now that you have everything you need, we're ready to begin. The first thing you're going to do is put your clarinet case on the floor with the emblem side facing up and the latches facing you. You're going to open your case and take out a reed. Hopefully, your reed is living in a plastic reed keeper that's specifically made to house the reeds when they are not being played. If you don't have a reed keeper, you can keep your reed in the little plastic case that the reed came in. Whatever happens, you do not want to leave your reed on your mouthpiece. So once you remove the reed from the reed keeper, you're going to put the thin end of the reed in your mouth to moisten it. And you're going to leave it there while you continue to set up your clarinet. The first piece you want to take out of the case is the bell. Then you are going to get the lower joint and attach the lower joint to the bell, making sure that as you are pushing and twisting, that you aren't bending any of the keys. Next, you're going to want to grab the upper joint with your left hand and press down the keys as if you were playing so that the bridge key on the bottom of the upper joint raises. You're going to align the bridge key on the upper joint with the bridge key on the lower joint and attach them, twisting very slightly back and forth until the pieces are connected. You don't want to twist very fast or very far because you don't want the bridge key to hit any of the side keys on the lower joint. Next, you're going to take the barrel and twist it gently onto the upper joint. As you're doing that, make sure that the bridge keys stay aligned and make sure that you're not twisting or squeezing any of the other keys. Once the barrel is in place, you're going to take your mouthpiece and twist that onto the barrel. You want to make sure that the open, flat side of the mouthpiece is directly in line with the register key. The register key is the tall, skinny key on the back of the clarinet. Once that's aligned, you're going to take your ligature and slip it on top of the mouthpiece. At this point, I like to balance the clarinet with the bell on my leg and hold the clarinet in my left hand with my hand wrapped around the barrel and so that my thumb can easily access the ligature. Then I am going to take my right hand and loosen the screws of the ligature. We want to loosen the screws enough so that we can slide the reed in between the ligature and the mouthpiece. So now that's what we're going to do. We take our reed and we slide it between the ligature and mouthpiece. And you'll notice with my left thumb that I put my ligature, move the ligature up so that there was enough space to slide the reed in. You might need to loosen the screws a little bit more to make sure that then the ligature can go over the reed. And I'm going to place the ligature underneath that line on the reed and make sure that my reed is straight. So once your reed is in the right spot, straight on the mouthpiece, with just a hairline of the curvy part of the reed over the mouthpiece, I'm going to tighten the screws of my ligature. Make sure to not tighten them too tightly. The ligature wants to hug the reed. The ligature does not want to death squeeze the reed. The reed vibrating is what makes sound on the clarinet. And if we tighten the ligature screws too tight, the reed won't be able to vibrate. Now that our clarinet is together, we're going to talk about how to make a correct clarinet embouchure. First, you are going to roll your bottom lip over your bottom teeth. Don't roll your lip in too much. You still want to see a little bit of red of your lips. Next, you're going to put your top teeth on the mouthpiece. Then you are going to pull your corners in so they're hugging the mouthpiece. Make sure that your chin is flat and pointed. You don't want your chin all bunched up against the ligature in the mouthpiece because that will prohibit the reed from vibrating. And as we mentioned before, the reed vibrating is so important to getting a great clarinet sound. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to your clarinet embouchure is your tongue position. This is hard to demonstrate, for you won't be able to see my tongue inside my mouth. But if you say the word key, go ahead and say that with me, key, 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 you'll feel that the middle of your tongue is high in your mouth. And that is where it should live when you're playing the clarinet. Your tongue should look like a turtle shell in your mouth, so that the middle of your tongue is high in the middle of your mouth, and the front of your tongue is lower so that you can articulate tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. Now that we've put our clarinet together and we've talked about a good clarinet embouchure, we're now ready to talk about how to produce a characteristic clarinet sound. What we've already talked about, putting the instrument together and forming the embouchure, are two really important components to making a great sound. The other components that we need to talk about before we actually make a tone on our clarinet are our posture and hand position, as well as our breathing. Let's start with posture and hand position. The correct posture for playing the clarinet when seated is feet flat on the floor and back straight, away from the back of your chair. You want to keep your head and neck straight too. You don't want to go to the clarinet. You want to bring the clarinet to you. To hold the clarinet, you are going to put your right thumb under the thumb rest, and you're going to make sure that your hand is curved. You can think a C for clarinet, or you can think that you are holding a really big cheeseburger and you didn't want to smush in the toppings. You want to keep your hand in the shape of that bun. So your right thumb is going to go underneath the thumb rest, and the thumb rest position is going to split where your nail meets the skin of your thumb. That is going to go directly in the middle of the thumb rest. So thumb under the thumb rest and your hands in a C for clarinet or cheeseburger hand position. Then your left thumb is going to hover over the left thumb key with your fingers hovering over the appropriate key holes. You are going to hold the clarinet in the center of your body with the bell near or between your knees, depending on how tall you are when seated. And then the clarinet is going to enter your mouth at a 45-degree angle. You want to keep your elbows away from your body. You don't want your clarinet so close to you that your elbows are resting on your sides, and you don't want your clarinet so far away that it looks like you're going to take off. You want to be comfortable with the clarinet at a 45-degree angle and your arms at your side. We're nearly ready to play. All we have to do now is talk about the fuel for our instrument, which is our air. And I want to talk about air very briefly without the clarinet, and then we'll talk about it again with the clarinet. Air makes your instrument work, and in order to take a big enough breath to get enough air to have your very best clarinet sound, it is very important to breathe low. You don't want to breathe high from your shoulders. You don't want your shoulders to move when you're taking the breath like this. That's a bad breath. And the way I tell if it's a bad breath is I listen to the pitch of the breath. The lower I breathe from, the lower the pitch of my breath. Listen to this bad breath from up high. Hear that pitch? Now listen to a low breath where I'm breathing from my belly. Hear that low pitch? Again, high versus low. When we breathe, we want to hear that low pitch. Now we're ready to breathe with our clarinet. We're going to sit nice and tall, feet flat on the floor. We're going to hold our clarinet properly like we just discussed, and we're going to make our clarinet embouchure like we talked about earlier. With your clarinet in your mouth, you are going to drop your jaw and take that low breath that we talked about previously. As soon as you have your air, you're immediately going to bring your jaw back up and reform your correct clarinet embouchure. Try to practice this with me. Breathe, and then reform the embouchure. Let go of all that air, and let's try that again. Breathe, and reform the embouchure. Excellent. All right, here we go. We're ready for our clarinet checklist. Are all these things in place so we can play with our very best clarinet sound? Are we sitting up straight, feet flat on the floor? Is our clarinet in the center of our body with the bell nearer between our knees? Is that clarinet at the correct 45-degree angle? Is your right thumb centered under the thumb rest and your left thumb hovering over that left thumb key? Are your fingers curved in a C for clarinet fashion? Are your elbows away from your body? Is your head up? Are you bringing the clarinet to you instead of going to the clarinet? Are your top teeth on the mouthpiece? Is your bottom lip over those bottom teeth? Is your chin flat and pointed? Are your corners in? Are you taking a nice big low breath? Fantastic! Now we are ready to play. Now we're going to put all of this into action. I'm going to be playing open G, no fingers G, which is found on the second line of the treble clef staff. I am going to go through the entire clarinet checklist in my head, thinking about my posture and my hand position and my embouchure and my air. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to move lots of air through my clarinet, but instead of thinking about blowing the air into my clarinet, I'm just going to have my great posture with my head up, bringing my clarinet to me, and I'm going to think about blowing all of that air through my two front teeth. This is what my G sounds like, making sure I have checked off all the things on my clarinet checklist. If one part of my checklist isn't there, it is going to have an effect on the way my clarinet tone sounds. For instance, if I play with slow air instead of fast air, this is what my G sounds like. See how thin that sounds compared to my fast air sound? If I'm playing with an embouchure that has some mistakes, like my chin is bunchy or my corners aren't pulled in, then I might sound like this. Hear how that is different compared to my good clarinet checklist sound. If one day you go to practice and you sound different than usual, you need to make sure to go through your clarinet checklist to make sure you're doing everything to get your very best sound. If you've gone through your entire checklist and something still sounds funny, check your reed. If your reed is too old or is chipped and broken or is too hard or too soft, you won't be able to get your very best clarinet sound. So don't worry, if you've been getting a good sound, but then one day something just is super funny, it's probably not you. It's probably your reed. If the reed is bad, go ahead and put on another one, go through your checklist again, and hopefully that solves the problem. Enough of me talking. Now is a great time to find your favorite piece of clarinet music and to try to play it, making sure that you're keeping in mind all the items on our clarinet checklist. Have fun! Now we're ready to put our clarinet away. We're going to take our reed off the mouthpiece and put it in our reed keeper. We're going to remove our mouthpiece from our clarinet, And just make sure that we wipe off any excess moisture with our clarinet swab. I do not recommend using your mouthpiece brush. I do think you should just take your swab and maybe slip it over your finger and get up in the bottom of the mouthpiece, the top of the mouthpiece, just to make sure that you're putting the mouthpiece away with no moisture. If you use the brush too much, it actually erodes the inside of the mouthpiece. Make sure you put that mouthpiece and ligature in your mouthpiece cap and put that in your case. We're now going to take our swab and put the heavy weighted end through the top of the clarinet, through the barrel, and let it come out the bell. You're going to pull the swab evenly through the entire length of the clarinet. You might have to do this 2 or 3 times to ensure that all the moisture is out of the clarinet. You don't want to put the clarinet away with any moisture in it because it's not good for the pads. After the clarinet is swabbed out, you are going to take the clarinet apart in the opposite order that you put it together. So first, you're going to remove the barrel from the upper joint, making sure that as you are twisting and pulling off the barrel, you are not twisting or overly pressing any of the keys. After the barrel, you're going to remove the upper joint, making sure that the keys are depressed so that the bridge key raises, so that as you're twisting and pulling the upper joint off the lower joint, that bridge key is not hitting anything. Next, you'll separate the lower joint and the bell. Once all of the pieces of my clarinet are in the case, I like to wrap my swab around my fingers and put the swab in the bell of my clarinet. Once all the pieces of your clarinet are in the case, you want to take one last look just to make sure that they're all set in the places where they go and that none of your reeds or anything else that you keep in your case has any chance of coming into contact with the clarinet once the case is shut. Once you've done that double check, you're going to shut your case and make sure you latch it, and you're good to go until the next time. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how to find more music to play if you've already played through all your favorite things in your beginning band book and all the music you had in your folder. You could always purchase music from your local dealer or online. There are books full of music from movies, TV, and your favorite performing artists. You also could reach out to your band director. Maybe he or she could get you something new to play. If neither of those are options, or you want something new to try, you could try to figure out your favorite songs by ear, or even make up your own music to play. The possibilities are endless. Thank you for joining me today, clarinets. If you have any questions about anything we worked on today, or anything in the future having to do with clarinet or band or music in college, feel free to contact me at labovitz@astate.edu. That's SLABOVITZ@astate.edu. Thank you so much and happy practicing!